Here we go, grade 9s. This is the second video of solving equations. These are two-step equations. So as you can see, negative 3x plus 5 is equal to negative 10 will involve two steps. If you haven't seen the first step equations, you should kind of backtrack and go look at that. So here's the first one. So we have negative 3x plus 5 equals negative 10. I want to get x all by itself. So in order to do that, it's on the left side, as we know. Here's the left side, right side. Equals is kind of the dividing line. So I got to get x by itself. And so in order to do that, first, before I do that, I have to get rid of this positive 5. That's the first thing I have to get rid of. Leave that x and negative 3, get rid of whatever's beside it. So in order to do that, I want to do the opposite. Doing the opposite gets rid of it. So instead of add 5, I take away 5. And that will cancel it out. But in algebra, whatever you do to one side, do to the other. So I'm going to cancel that out like so. So we're left with negative 3x. And on the left side, on the right side, we're left with negative 10. And we just subtracted 5 more, so we're at negative 15. So I have negative 3x is equal to negative 15. Now, in order to get x by itself, I have to do the opposite of this operation, which is times right in there. So the opposite of times is divide. So I only do the opposite operation. I only divide by negative 3. I don't make this a positive 3. I don't make this opposite. Number stays the same, just the operation is opposite, so divide. Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other, right? And so what ends up happening here is we have negative 3 divide negative 3, and that basically cancels out because the answer is 1. So 1x, or just x, is equal to negative 15 divide negative 3. We know that a negative and a negative cancel out when you're dividing, becomes positive, and the answer is 5. So when we solve this equation, x equals 5, and there's the first one. All right. So next equation here is negative 51 is equal to negative 6 plus 5x. So first thing I want to do is get 5x by itself. Notice that this is the left side. Now x is on the opposite side. It's on the right side. So I want to get rid of the 5x, which happens to be positive, right? This belongs to that 5. So I got to get rid of this first. So the opposite of negative 6 is do the opposite, add 6. And that will cancel out. Whatever do to one side, do to the other. We add 6 over here. So we are left with, on this side, negative 51. We just added 6. That's negative 45. That will equal to 5x, right? Now, x again wants to be by itself. Want to do the opposite of times 5, we divide 5. Whatever do to one side, we do to the other. These 5's cancel out. So we're left with, on this side, negative 9 is equal to x. So that is the answer. X is equal to negative 9. If you prefer to write it this way, it really means the same thing. Negative 9 equals x. X equals negative 9. Okay. Next question. 2x plus 1/10 equals 3/5. I'm going to show a little trick here that seems to work magic if you learn it well, and it makes life a lot easier. So underneath this 2x, there is a 1. And so you notice that we have a fraction plus a fraction equals a fraction. What I want to do is get rid of fractions, get rid of the denominators and numerators. Like I just want to have like whole numbers. This trick works and it gets rid of all the fractions. So what I'm going to do is multiply every part by the lowest common denominator. So you multiply each part by the lowest common denominator. You ask yourself, what number does 1, 10, and 5, what do they all go into? And the answer, of course, is 10. They all go into 10. So I'm going to multiply everything by 10. So I'm going to multiply this by 10. So 10 times 2x over 1, or 10 over 1. I'm going to multiply 1/10 times 10 over 1. And I'm going to multiply 3/5 times 10 over 1. So multiply everything by the lowest common denominator. Now watch what happens. So when I multiply 10 times 2x, I'm left with 20x. Plus, when I multiply 1/10 times 10, so multiplying these two, remember that back to multiplying fractions, these are called bikini numbers. So they can both divide by 10. So I'm going to divide this by 10, change it to a 1. Divide this by 10, change it to a 1, because they both divide by 10. Now I multiply numerators. 1 times 1 is 1, and divide that put that over 1 times 1, which is 1. So this is 1 over 1, which is really just 1. Okay, and that equals to 3 over 5 times 10 over 1. Look again here, bikini numbers. These both divide by 5. So that is a 1. If I divide by 5, that is a 2. Now I multiply top two numbers. 3 times 2 is 6 over 1 times 1, which is 1. 6 over 1 is just 6. Now take a look. We've eliminated fractions. We're left with whole numbers. X wants to be by itself on the left side. So I want to get rid of this positive 1, which is a negative 1. And whatever I do to one side, I do to the other, right? This cancels out, making that, gets that out of there. So we're left with 20x is equal to 6 take away 1, which is 5. Now, x still wants to be by itself. Instead of times 20, I divide 20. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. Cancels out those 20s. So I'm left with x is equal to this fraction, 5 over 20, and I can divide these both by 5, making this 1 over 4. If you prefer to write it as a decimal, it's 0.25, and that is solving for x. Prefer to leave it as a fraction because it's good practice. Okay, this right here, we have, the only issue we have is that we don't like mixed numbers, so I'm going to get rid of that immediately. And I'm going to take that negative and put it with the numerator. So how I do that first is I go 4 times 1 and I add 3, so that's a 7, and keep the 4. So that basically just kind of gets rid of this, right? The negative goes with the 7, right? So that's what I'm going to look at. Now I've got this x over 3 minus a half equals to negative 7 over 4. Just like before, multiply everything by the lowest common denominator. So 3, 2, and 4, what number do they all go into? They all go into 12. So we multiply them all by 12. 12 over 1 times 12 over 1 times 12 over 1. Now remember what happens? We look for bikini numbers here, 3 and 12. And it's always these two, you notice. This bottom, this top. Even here, look. Bottom, this top. This bottom, this top. We can actually cancel them out. So this one becomes a 1, that becomes a 4. They both divide by 3. This becomes a 1, that becomes a 6. And this becomes a 1, that becomes a 3. When we do that, we are left with here 4x, there was a negative sign here, minus, this is 6, 1 times 6 over 1. And here, it's negative 7 times 3, it's negative 21. So we have taken an equation with fractions and made it into whole numbers, which just by multiplying by lowest common denominator. So now I want to get x by itself, so we add 6 both sides. Cancel that out. Now we're left with 4x equals negative 21, but you add 6. So that works out to be negative 15 when you add 6. Get x by itself, we divide by 4 both sides. Cancels that out. We are left with x is equal to, this is a fraction in lowest term, so it can stay, just that it's improper. So we want to write that as 3 3/4 negative. Or if you want to write it as a decimal, it's negative 3.75. But again, fractions are perfectly great. We can just leave it like that. All right, next one. We have also can be in decimal form. So here we have left side, right side. So what we want to do is get the x. Notice this negative belongs to this x here. I want to get rid of this first. So I want to add 0.02 to this side. Whatever I do to one, I do to the other, which cancels that out. So we're left with negative x over 3.7 is equal to this, which is positive 0.01. Now I want to multiply, I can cross multiply here, something I showed you in the last class. So we can multiply these two and these two. Numerator, denominator, numerator, denominator. So we get negative x is equal to 0.037. That's a negative x. We can never leave it negative, so we flip this, make it positive, but we make this negative. Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. So I flip this and basically put that negative over there, and there's our answer. Okay. Going very quickly here. So here's a question where we could use a two-step equation. The cost of pizza is $8.50 plus $1.35 per topping. How many toppings are on a pizza that costs $13.90? So $8.50 plus $1.35 per topping, $1.35 per Topping means times topping, which means it's 1.35t, is equal to the cost, which is $13.90. Trying to figure out the cost of t. So I want to get t by itself, got to get rid of this. So I got a minus 850. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. Cancels that out. We're left with 1.35t is equal to 1390 minus 850, and that works out to be $5.40, I believe. So 5.40. Now to get t by itself, we divide both sides by 1.35. Cancels that out. We're left t toppings. The number of toppings is equal to 4. That's how you use algebra or solving equations to get that. Last question. Larry cut a 2.5 meter long post into 2 pieces. One was 26 centimeters longer than the other. What was the length of each piece? So we have a short piece and a long piece. The short piece is called x. The other one, which is 26 longer, is x plus 26. Both of them are 2.5 meters. Now, 2.5 meters in centimeters, we have to keep the units the same. That's 250 centimeters. Because I used centimeters here, got to keep it here.